Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing my November and December reading wrap up. I did slump a little bit in November, so over the course of the last 2 months, I only read 8 books, which is actually a little bit on the lower side for me. I feel like over the course of the last year, it's been a lot closer to 9, 10, 11 books. But hey, books are books, and I'm just excited to talk about them all. Over the course of the last 2 months, like I said, I read 8 books, but within those 8 books, I read 4 in November and 4 in December, so a very even split. And then as far as genre goes, I read 2 fantasy books, 1 YA historical book, 2 romance books, 2 more holiday romance books. I feel like there is an important distinction to be made between those two. And then lastly, 1 fiction book. So without further ado, let's just jump into all of the books that I have read in the last 2 months. The first book that I read in the month of November is The Atlas 6 by Olive Blake. And this book has been sitting on my TBR for so long. So when I read this and got it off my TBR, I literally felt like $1,000,000. I cannot even explain to you how good it felt to not have this book sitting on my shelf anymore. But in this story, we are following 6 magicians called Medians who are competing to be members of this Alexandrian secret society. The problem is there's 6 magicians competing and there's only 5 spots. And I feel like the real kicker is they all have to work together, but they all know that someone's not going to make it. And in this story, I really loved the writing. I felt like Olive Blake has a very unique way of storytelling. She's very poetic in her word choice. And I also really liked the character dynamics at the beginning of the story. However, as we progressed, I felt like the things that I liked about the character relationships became the things that I disliked. The ways that the characters communicated with each other, I began to strongly dislike, and that was really frustrating. I also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I was slumping in November, so just getting through anything was really, really difficult. And I did find this a little bit slow, a little bit boring at points, which I don't think I was expecting to feel about this. This was fun, and I would still recommend it. Ultimately, I decided to give it a 3.5. I'm undecided on if I should continue the series, so let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Up next, I picked up The Runaway King by Jennifer A. Nielsen. This is book 2 in the Ascendance trilogy, and honestly, I wasn't a huge fan of this book, and the reason for that is this is like a YA middle grade series. It was recommended to me by a good friend, and so I really wanted to give it a chance. And the first book in this series, for anybody wondering, follows a boy named Sage who he's an orphan. He is literally living on the streets trying to survive the whole thing. And one day this man finds him and he's like, hey, I have a job for you to do. And if you can complete this job, you will be rewarded. And, we follow that journey in book 1. There's a little bit of a cliffhanger. We jump into book 2. And what I was trying to say before is this just felt so YA, so middle grade to me, to the point where I felt like I couldn't really sink into it and enjoy my reading experience. Yeah, I like this series. Like, objectively, I think it's good. I think it just found me at the wrong time. I just think my reading taste is a little bit more adult than this series. Once I struggled to like the main character and the plot, all that I was really left with was how young this series felt, and so I didn't really love this one. I ended up giving it a 3 stars, but if you guys have like kids or if you're really young, I would recommend. So at this point, I've had a 3.5 star, a 3 star, and I really needed something good to get me out of this reading slump. And I picked up Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings, and I loved this book so much. This is book 2 in the Magnolia Park series. I am so freaking excited to continue this series. And in this story, we are following Daisy, who has been raised by her older brother, Julian, who is also a gang lord in London. So her life is very, very complicated. All she wants is to live a normal life, but she can't, because her whole home life, her family, her friends, everything that surrounds her day to day is very violent, very dangerous. And she finds herself falling in love with Christian Hems, who unfortunately is in love with somebody else. And I will leave it at that. And so you watch as they, date each other in order to cope with things that are going on in their lives. And then you have these very real feelings start to emerge in this book. And what I really, really loved about this story is the way that as a reader, I am rooting so hard for these characters to succeed, even though they are making horrible decisions. Cannot stress enough, the things that they are doing in here, don't do it. They are making the worst decisions, inflicting so much pain upon themselves, upon others. And in this series, you're watching relationships happen over the course of many books. So things are very far from resolved in this story. So I cannot wait to continue this series. And yeah, I could go on forever. I gave this 5 stars. Highly recommend this series. Also, a lot of these books are in reading vlogs. So if you're curious about my journey through them, I will link those down below. Up next, still in the month of November, I picked up Bringing Down the Duke by Evie Dunmore. This is a book that I was so excited about. I was like, yes, I think we're coming out of my reading slump. And everything that I had heard about it, it gives off historical romance, Bridgerton energy, which is exactly what I need in my life. Anything Bridgerton coded, I'm looking for it, okay? Send it my way. But unfortunately, I didn't connect with this book kind of at all. In this book, we are following the story of Annabelle, who is among one of the first women to attend school at Oxford, which slay queen, amazing. But unfortunately, there are some things that she needs to do in order to maintain that scholarship. One of those things is supporting the women's suffrage movement. And at this time, the women's suffrage group that she's a part of, they need the support and backing of influential men in the town. And so Annabelle kind of unknowingly goes after the Duke. And she's like, hey, you've got a lot of power, a lot of money, a lot of influence. I'm just going to go for the guy who can offer us the most. And obviously this becomes a romance between the two of them. It's very Grumpy Sunshine, which is probably my least favorite romance trope. And I think the thing that I disliked the most about this book is, I don't know if it's the Duke or just the relationship between them. I just wasn't a fan of the romance. I didn't really understand the attraction to the Duke. I didn't understand what he was really offering. And yeah, the spice was just not my favorite in here. Yeah, I just unfortunately did not feel the romance. And when you don't feel the romance, it's kind of just, you don't want to be experiencing it. And so while I thought that this was going to get me out of my reading slump fully, it kind of put me back into it. And I definitely have heard more people enjoy this book over not. So if you're considering reading this book, I think you should still go for it if it sounds like something that you're interested in, if you like the Grumpy Sunshine trope. And so yeah, I didn't really connect with this one. And at this point, I'm not planning on continuing the series. Okay, now we're transitioning into December. And December consisted of a lot of holiday, magical feeling books. And so I decided to pick up none other than Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This book has been on my mental TBR for quite literally years, I think, ever since it came out and got super popular. And I think I just had this feeling that I was really gonna love this book. And so I wanted to pick it up at the right time. I wanted to be fully in the mood for it. But what that resulted in was me just putting it off completely. And so I knew I couldn't let 2024 slip by without picking up this book. And I am so glad that I did. You guys know, you can see I gave this 5 stars. It was so good. In this story, we are following Iris and Roman as they are competing for the same job at their local gazette. They're both journalists, both great journalists, and they want the same job. And something else really important, I feel like, for this book is that the canvas, I guess you could say, that this book is taking place on, like in the background, is this big war going on between gods. And so the journalists are documenting what's going on in the war. Iris's brother is off fighting in the war. And so she misses him so much, and she starts writing letters to him on her magical typewriter. And these letters start disappearing. She's like, oh, hopefully they're getting delivered to my brother. Unfortunately, well, depending on how you look at it, they are not getting sent to her brother, but rather Roman, her academic rival at the newspaper. But she doesn't know that they're going to Roman. Roman obviously knows that they're coming from Iris. And so it's a really sweet romance that goes on in here. The writing is just gorgeous. I loved the way that Rebecca Ross was able to tell this story. It definitely is YA romantasy, but honestly, it did not bother me at all. I loved this book, and I am itching to pick up the second and final book in this series, Ruthless Vows. So yeah, this was wonderful. Easily one of my favorite books that came out of, honestly, the year. I was gonna say December, but like just the whole year. Then I read 'Tis the Season for Revenge. This is the Christmas romance that I read with my book club. A bunch of girls just vote on books, and this is the one that got chosen. And I had never read anything by Morgan Elizabeth, so I really didn't know what to expect. I did not vote for this book. I voted for In a Holidays by Christina Lauren, so maybe I can read that one next year. But this book was interesting. I think it's not necessarily a bad book. I think I'm just not the girl that this book was written for. In this story, I think it's hard because I really like the synopsis. I like the plot. I like what we were going for, but the execution just wasn't my favorite. And so in this book, we're following our main character. She is getting ready to go to this Halloween party with her boyfriend, and she's been with this guy for 4 years. She thinks he's about to propose to her. Then he pulls up to her apartment and breaks up with her. And obviously he is a horrible person. Like, it's so obvious right from the beginning. And so she gets drunk with her friends that night and downloads a dating app, and she ends up matching with her ex-boyfriend's boss. And she's like, oh my God, that's the solution to all my problems. I'm going to get so much revenge on my horrible ex. I'm going to date his boss and then show up with his boss to their holiday party, and that'll really show him. And honestly, I was into it. I was like, that sounds like so much fun. The problem was I hated the main character, first of all. Also, I don't mind spice in books. Like, it's not really a pro or a con for me in a romance book, but this book had so much spice, to the point where I was kind of just skimming those. And then at my book club, the girls and I were like all talking about the stuff that happened in this book. And there were scenes that I literally could not believe were in this book because I like literally skipped them. Like, I just skimmed it. And so yeah, I ended up skimming kind of a lot because there's a lot of spice in this book. So my friends were like, did you even read it? And I was like, yes. I will say I liked the writing a lot of this book. I didn't mind the male love interest. I thought he was nice. Hated the main girl. Oh my God, she drove me crazy. And then I also really loved the ending. So do with that what you will. If this sounds like the kind of story that you're interested in, if you like spice in your romance books, I would give it a go. It wasn't for me. I understand the appeal, I think. But yeah, I don't know if I'll be picking up more of her books because I just don't think that this is the kind of romance book that I, at this point in my life, am looking for. So that was 'Tis the Season for Revenge by Morgan Elizabeth. Then I started a reading vlog that is coming out very, very soon. So if you guys don't want my opinions to be spoiled for this reading vlog, maybe close out of the video now. But if you want to know what I thought of some books that are going to be featured in a reading vlog soon, stick around. I decided to pick up Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. You guys have been begging me for months to read this book, and y'all were totally right. I love this book so much. I gave it 5 stars. I've given all of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books 5 stars. Shouldn't be surprised that this was just one of the same. It was so good. In this story, we are following Carrie Soto, who she is like the world's best women's tennis player. She's won the most, I think it's World Series. I've already forgotten. I don't know, but she's won like the most championships of all time in tennis. She's retired. And so where this book starts, we're watching her as she's at this tennis tournament where her record is about to get tied. She's like, oh my God, if my record gets tied, I'm going to need to come out of retirement and break my own record. She's older now. She hasn't been playing tennis. Like, that is a very difficult thing to do. And so we watch her as, well, first of all, we go back in time and watch Carrie as a young kid grow up to become the best women's tennis player of all time. And then for the rest of the story, we watch as she tries to break her own record. And my favorite thing about this book was Carrie Soto's character development. The way that she is able to grow and change so much as a character was really, really beautiful to me. I just loved the way that Taylor Jenkins Reid was able to write that. I felt like, as always, everything in here felt so real. Like Carrie's relationship with her dad, with her agent, with her friend with Bo, if you know, you know. Like everything about that was so stunning. And I just felt like she could really be out there in the world doing all of these amazing things. And I just loved it. I loved it so much. I'm so glad that I read this book this year. And if you guys haven't read this book or anything by Taylor Jenkins Reid, what are you doing? It's so good. Also, if you're scared of fiction, don't be afraid. Start here. They're so good. And again, I'm rambling, but it's because these are so freaking amazing. And yeah, I just loved this book with my whole heart. I'm so happy that I read this before the year ended. Then the 8th and final book that I read in December was Love Light Farms by B.K. Borison. And I ended up giving this book a 3-star. This was not my favorite. Honestly, the Christmas romances this year did not hit like they have in the past. This book follows our main character. She runs her own Christmas tree farm. And first of all, gorgeous setting for a Christmas book. Obsessed with that. But unfortunately, her Christmas tree farm is going under. The trees are dying. She has no money left. She is barely keeping this business alive. And so in order to save her business, she ends up applying for this social media competition where basically if you are one of the finalists, this influencer is going to come and do a feature on your business. And so she ends up becoming one of the finalists in this social media competition. And if she wins, they get a cash prize. The problem is she wrote on her application that she runs this Christmas tree farm with her boyfriend. And she did that because she wanted it to feel more romantic of a place. And so she ends up fake dating her best friend, Luca. And so we follow the story from there. It's very small town, friends to lovers, and it was sweet. Don't get me wrong. I just felt overall it was a bit clunky. And I think there were a couple things, and you'll see this in my reading vlog. I think the thing that was difficult for me the most is the romance kind of came out of nowhere. Our female main character was very much in love with her best friend. Always. Like from the second they met, she always wanted to be with him. And so her best friend, again, it kind of felt like it came out of nowhere when he was like, oh yeah, like, because I mean, obviously they fall in love. And so it kind of just, when the feelings started to be reciprocated, I was like, whoa, where did we come from with that? It just didn't feel very natural. I don't know, it just kind of came as a bit of a surprise. And yeah, the book just felt a little bit slow, a little bit boring, a little bit two-dimensional to me. I know that my best friend, I read this book with my best friend. I haven't talked to her about it yet. I know that she loved it. So do with that what you will. If you guys want to pick this book up and go read it, go do it. Save it for your list next year. There are more books in this series, so I need to decide if I want to read those. This definitely was not a bad book. I think I just didn't emotionally connect with the characters and the story. And I think I was most surprised because I love Friends to Lovers. So I was really looking forward to that. But in this instance, I didn't really connect with it. All right, besties, these plus the books that I read on my Kindle are everything that I read in the months of November and December. Again, if you guys are interested in the reading vlogs where I read all of these books, I'll be sure to link them down below. And definitely subscribe so you guys don't miss the reading vlog that some of these other books are in. I'm really excited for that one to come out. Before you guys go, comment down below the scarf emoji so I know who made it all the way to the end of this video. But I think that's going to be it from me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you are having a great new year, a great reading month, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!